Member of Parliament for Westmoreland Central George Wright returned to Parliament 13 days before the end of his leave. Last week, Tuesday, to the shock and surprise of many, George Wright returned to Gordon House. He made a decision to sit on the opposition benches. Before that, he had issued his resignation letter as a member of the Jamaica Labour Party to the General Secretary of the JLP. His return to Gordon House occurred 13 days prior to the expiration of his leave of absence, and this coincided with the tabling of a parliamentary committee report in relation to serious incidents against women. It was mentioned by Babsy Grange that on many occasions she has had to come to the House to denounce these serious acts of dangerous activities against women and girls. Babsy Grange was the first government minister to have expressed concern when George Wright and the issue of him causing harm to a woman in a video became a public matter of discourse. Mentioned by the police that both Mr. Wright and Ms. Singh had filed serious complaints against each other, but both of them made a decision to not press any charges against each other, so the investigators had to close the case. In Parliament on Tuesday, shortly after Mr. Wright sat for a short period of time on the opposition front benches, Warmington, a government minister, reportedly called out to him before the Westmoreland Central Member of Parliament made a decision to leave the chambers with JLP Chairman Robert Montague. Montague is the government's mining and transport minister. Mr. Wright did not return to the chambers of Gordon House on Tuesday. The opposition People's National Party has mentioned that it is totally against Mr. Wright sitting with them on the opposition side. However, the statement coming from Gordon House is that Mr. Wright will sit in the opposition benches when he arrives in the chambers. A statement coming from the Jamaica Labour Party has indicated that Wright will address the issues surrounding the video and the case that was investigated by the police publicly, and that he will still support the policies and programs of the party and the government. Stands only a resignation as an elected member of Parliament can remove George Wright from his new seat on the opposition benches in Gordon House, despite how unwelcome his presence may have been for the PNP members who sit on that side. The Westmoreland Central Member of Parliament, who has been caught in controversial issues after a video surfaced in which a man was seen causing harm to a woman, surprised the PNP members when he chose to sit on their benches last week Tuesday on an early return to Parliament, 2 weeks before his leave of absence should expire. Based on what has been mentioned, if there was a need for constitutional changes in this regard, this situation with Wright would recommend same. As it stands, Wright is not under the control of the government nor that of the opposition. If he is not one of the majority of members that form the government, then he is considered to be a part of the opposition. But based on the information about his resignation, he supports the governing party's policies and programs. So, of course, this creates further issues. The situation is tied to all persons, the government and the opposition. So there needs to be constitutional changes to allow for the recall of representatives that have been elected by the people. Whilst Golden has accepted the constitutional provision, he believes that George Wright should sit among those whose policies he is in support of. George Wright supports the governing party's objectives and programs in the form of the Jamaica Labour Party's administration. Therefore, he can be expected to vote with the majority and should sit with them as well. Leader of opposition business in the House, Hilton, has said that Wright's seating arrangement is not bearable. He says that he has no idea who or what George Wright is at the moment. He has not spoken about anything. He's not a part of the government, nor is he a part of the opposition. The seating arrangement is not a constitutional matter. It is a matter for discussion between the government and the opposition business leaders in the House. It was mentioned that there is an urgent need to discuss this for good order to reign in the House. If not, George Wright may well sit in the front benches of the opposition, which is reserved for senior members and spokespersons. And he may also choose to vote with the government. It is not just for the constitutional provisions, but for good order to be maintained. However, this situation is not bearable. Discussions will take place with the clerk to the House, the leader of government business, and the leader of government business for the opposition side. It is a question of whether or not anyone can move him and what it would require to move him to a new space. Many have said that there may be divisions about this very same matter. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Let me know what you think about this surprise visit from George Wright to sit among the opposition PNP members in Gordon House. Where should he sit? Should he sit with the government or should he sit by himself? Should they reserve a section for George Wright or should he be sitting with the PNP members? It is a controversial matter because he is in support of the government's policies and programs, so he cannot be a part of the opposition as it stands, and they are extremely upset with him sitting with them.